Good morning and welcome to the Mindful Messenger Show brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Media Project. My name is Amanda Johnson and today we are talking to Maggie Bain about developing intimacy and probably a whole lot more. Born in Kano, Nigeria and raised in Scotland, Maggie ventured to the Bahamas in 1988. She arrived with a wealth of knowledge after having been trained in the United Kingdom as a registered nurse, midwife, and critical care nurse. After more than 30 years of nursing, she decided to pursue her lifelong interest in human sexuality at the Florida Sex Therapy Institute, West Palm Beach, and returned to break new ground by becoming the first sex therapist in the Bahamas and sparking conversations on sexuality. With a strong purpose, but still unsure how her work was going to be received, Maggie took flight with her weekly column titled Loving Relationships for the health section of Nassau's Tribune newspaper, and also hosting her own Love on the Rock interactive relationship radio show on Island FM. She was delighted by the warm feedback and by the public demand for more. As the community became more accepting, her speaking engagements and private clients increased, and her work started to take root. Her message of rekindling the heat and deepening intimacy to create an extraordinary relationship is both relatable and recognizably achievable. Her unique style and natural ability to put people at ease makes her a magnetic personality. Welcome, Maggie.
Thank you. Thank you,
I'm
Amanda.
so excited. What?
I loved how you paused at the magnetic personality bit.
I know, right? Ta-da!
I know.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, we have so much fun stuff to talk about. We've already been talking for half an hour before actually deciding, oh, we should hit record now. Because there's just so much good stuff. You've been on this journey for so long, and I would love to kind of go back to the beginning and ask you, like, what was it that kind of sparked that message coming forward and the idea to write a book and create a brand and this whole wild journey you've been on the last so many years?
Well, you have to go back. You know, it's, I don't know, maybe like a lot of people, that little voice started many years. I started nursing when I was 17 years old, but always felt I was a good nurse. I'm still a good nurse, but that little voice just gets louder and louder, and it's persistent. And there was always a sense of unrest. And I know people have a sense of unrest in their work, and for whatever reasons, you know, but my reason was that I was used to having conversations with my girlfriends and friends over lunch and coffee. And of course it would include boyfriends, husbands, and whatever. And I was always extremely comfortable with my nursing medical background talking about the whole sexuality bit. And many times I would say to them, I would love to be a sex therapist. I would love to be a sex therapist. Not knowing that that's how it would transpire over the years. And so then when I got to closer to 50 as a nurse, you know, physically and energy wise, you have to think about, well, what about the next stage? And so that's when I Googled how to become a sex therapist, because it's a whole thing. What really brings you joy? Where do you want to go? And I didn't have all the coaching at that time, but I knew that was how I needed to find out where my joy was. And so that's where I found an educator in West Palm Beach, and that's how it came about. But I'd never written, I'd never spoken, but nursing, you counsel people all the time. I'd counsel people dying. I'd counseled mothers as they delivered children with deformities. We just counsel. So I knew, you're gonna laugh at me, the process. You know, we just talked about how I don't like those cliche words, but I knew how to do it. It was innate within me. It was who I am. And so this ability of becoming and transitioning and transforming into somebody else, into another, evolving into another field, or evolving into the person I was meant to become, actually just was a natural process for me. So that was really how it started. Yeah. So I did a little sort of market research. I spoke to a psychiatrist in the Bahamas, because there wasn't a sex therapist there. And how do you think it'd be received? And of course, they're very interesting in the Caribbean, like Latino cultures, patriarchal societies, everywhere. It's a universal problem or issues that people have with relationships and intimacy. It crosses all boundaries altogether. So in fact, it's a very good profession to get into. Yeah.
Was there what was the culture around it at the beginning? Like, was it, were people obviously hungry for it, or did it feel very taboo, like controversial?
Taboo. I mean, if you haven't got anybody, so there I was, a Scottish woman married to a Bahamian. So I was already crossing many boundaries right there, who was really stepping forward in Bahamian culture to really break ground and talk about things. So it was very much, I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. And that's why I was encouraged to do, somebody said to me, well, why don't you just speak to the features editor in the local paper, just start writing, and because then people will know how you think, and then they'll get familiar with you, and that's what to do. So innocent me, and as we just spoke about, you know, a big fish in a small pond, there is a lot of advantage in a small place. I literally thought about some of the things I would write about. I'd never written before, never. I didn't even know if I could. But I knew I wanted to start my private practice. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, this is really good. So I picked up the phone and asked to speak to the features editor. Confidence was never a problem for me, ever. And I just said, this is who I am. I've just trained as and I would like to write. And these are some of the topics that I would like to. Why do men cheat? And, you know, I can't remember some of the other topics that I threw out to her. And she took the bait. She just ran with it. She said, sure, send it to me by Thursday. I'll print it by Tuesday. I was like, and then I had to do it. And and that was it. And they liked it. So, you know, you send something to the newspapers. If they say that, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to print it. Right. They might print it one week, but it doesn't mean they're going to keep on printing it. But they liked it. And they said to me when I did a little feedback, and they said, we're really not going to edit much, just a little. And in fact, they didn't, because they didn't correct any spelling or anything. But, and it just went from there. And so most of the articles, 600 words, were a relationship with a little sexuality at the end, to entice people, because, you know, we were talking about things that had never been spoken of before, ever. And then as time went on, I was then able to talk about more sexual things. You know, it just became more accepting. And from there, I was encouraged, I was invited to go on people's radio shows. And then after 1 year, I was on a radio show, and during the commercial break, the owner of the radio show came on, and he just said, "Oh, we've got to give her own show." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm going to talk about everything, as long as you know don't censor me." You're thinking that that would put them off. And they said, "No, that's fine." And that was how it all came about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then what transpired that wanted to make you go a little bit bigger with the message beyond this little island that you were on?
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. Sometimes, you know, we only know what we know. I didn't know what was beyond that. And it's only sometimes when people put that little seed of thought in your mind that even then that little seed is just a little seed. It doesn't mean that it's going to grow or it's going to grow into anything. But I remember quite distinctly, I was at a very prominent birthday party for a well-known person in the Bahamas, and her son, who was, I really didn't even know him well. I knew one of his brothers, but he was very well known. And as he walked past me, he didn't even stop to say to me. He just looked at me and he just said, "Maggie, you know you can take this internationally, can't you?" And I went, and he just walked on. And that was it. And that was the seed. That was the seed that then prompted other things from there. And, you know, my own personal things that happened personally, I realized, oh, I need to take this further out of the Bahamas. Because like I said, it crosses all cultures, all boundaries. And I realized the voice that I have, and wherever I go, and here I am in the UK, and people always say to me, "Oh, your voice, your accent, your voice, oh my gosh." And so I've come to know that it's my voice is a huge part of me. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. Love it. So then you somehow got to San Diego where we met.
Oh, do
right?
We have to? I tell them the story of.
We have to tell the story.
Yes. So you and I met, and I was on a big global leadership program in California for a year. And I think it was on the first day you and I met. You were a speaker. You were speaking. And it wasn't on the floor, on the platform, on your speaking platform that we did speak. But it was in the ladies' bathroom, you and I connected. And we were talking about branding. And I know we're going to talk about rebranding, but I will never lose the word that and so you chose the word intimacy specialist. So I'm a relationship and intimacy specialist. Because I was very conscious I started off with relationship and sex therapists and in the Bahamas, and I was very aware of the fact that a lot of people it puts people off, that word, you know. It's too personal and too intimate and too touching all the points that are their triggers that are setting them off in the first place. And so they don't feel comfort with approaching me. So, and you just said, well, intimacy. And I was like, oh, and that was it. And so I've gone from therapist to counselor to coach. I play with those words. And even when I do sessions with my clients, I use all those words because it's really, they all encompass the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's really finding a place and a word and a name that people are comfortable with. And so that's why I kind of settled on specialist, because it is my specialty. I don't like the word expert. Who wants to be an expert in anything? It's so confining. So, but you will always have that place, Amanda, of choosing the word intimacy.
In an intimate setting, like
Yes,
public. That was one of my, it was a good moment. It was a funny moment. And I remember like, can I ask you a question? Sure.
yeah, I know. We're washing our hands.
So fun.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of my best relationships have started in or near the bathroom, strangely. I think it's hilarious. So I just kind of go with it. And I'm
Yeah.
happy when it happens.
Yeah.
So then, you know, we started talking about what might it look like because you were really serious about creating a brand. It was part of your big mission in that program that you were in. So, so you decided to come to a retreat. And I think to this day, it might still be one of the most memorable and fun retreats I've ever facilitated.
Yeah.
For so many reasons, but particularly because of what happened with you and my learning around how to honor people's time zones. And also what happens when you don't honor the time zones. Like sometimes some really good stuff emerges. So.
Now that's really what happened that night. And I know everybody listening, we're going to let you in on the story. But I mean, you talk about organic. I mean, that was as organic as we could get. So there I had my radio show called Love on the Rock. And so you had taken the group of us, I think it was about 6 of us or something like that, on the maze.
The labyrinth.
The labyrinth, yeah, with little flashlights. And I had a heavy, heavy cold. And I was already jet lagged because I'd come from the Bahamas and we were in California. And everybody was taking their turns, and you were your process of how to pull out people's stories and how to really, and I must say, your ability to listen to a story and hear it through the ears and eyes of an editor is quite different from other people. Because I said to you, listening to other people's stories, I said, well, I didn't hear that story. And yet you were able to pick out, and some people's, you could hear a few stories, a few books in there. And anyway, so you came to me and I was like, I think it was about 8 or 9 o'clock. At these retreats, there's no set time, folks. There's no set hours.
There are these days, but back then there were not.
No, Amanda, I was doing the whingy child. I was doing the, oh no, can you not leave me till tomorrow? Can I not talk tomorrow? Can my turn not? And you were like the strict teacher. You were like, no, you've got to do it now. And I was like, oh no, but I was doing the whinge and then I looked down and I saw the flashlight beside me and I just picked it up and I went, well, but if you give me a microphone, well, hello and welcome to Love on the Rock. And the whole room just lit up, didn't it? And so the rock theme. So it was like, then all us little saucy women, it's all the sexy talk came out. It was like, yeah, hard as a rock and, launch a rocket, it was just like.
It was hilarious. Like, and they have to understand
how the chapters of the book came about.
Yeah. And it was so hilarious because it was like, we had this idea and everyone was like, that's it. Like this whole Love on the Rock, because it sounds like Love on the Rocks, which is,
yes.
A term that we're all, right?
Exactly.
And so I was like, oh my God, that's gold. And so everyone agreed, like, this is gold. And then we'll have a rock theme. And then everyone like broke up for a while to go work on their own stuff. I know I sound like a total tyrant making people do this type of work late at night, but I swear to God, we get better information at that point at night because all the filters are down.
us.
And so it was hilarious because we had all these people in different parts of the house that we were renting. And every once in a while it'd be like totally quiet and everyone was working on their post-it notes and everything. And then suddenly we'd hear the door open upstairs and someone would be like, get his rocket off or whatever. And it was like the whole house would collapse in laughter and then everyone would go back to what it was. This is how your book was birthed.
Yeah. I mean, everybody contributed to it and everybody felt they played a part in it, but it showed the humor. Mm-hmm. It showed the catchiness that, and that's where, and so Love on the Rock takes your love life from ho-hum to extraordinary, self-help, how to enhance your relationships. Actually, I have so many people that, I've had some clients that read it 3-4 times. They say it's like a coffee table book that they can pick up, they can pick the chapter, whether it's rocket launch, the sexy chapter, or, between a rock and a hard place, which, it's the hard, the anger, how to deal with anger issues. So they find those things and the exercises at the end of each chapter. So it's a powerful little book. It's, as people say, it's an easy read, but what they get from it, and through it all, as you know, the little idyllic bits, my humor, it's got to be, because people take relationships so seriously, and relationships are serious, but when you forget to have fun, when you forget to laugh and be playful, then that's when, it all gets so deadly serious. So it was a fun, it was so interesting how it just evolved. When we talk about evolving, that was absolutely an organic moment in time.
Yeah. And I love too, I think one of the things that you were one of the first clients that I worked with where I began to see how important it was to bring what you've already done with you. So obviously the way that we construct the books and everything, we're like always looking for the big story and the big expertise and how it was developed. But this idea of already kind of having a brand that had energy around it and curiosity and excitement and something you love to do. Like when you picked up that microphone, you were otherworldly. You were just like,
I still do. It's like, who knew? Before I had my first radio show and was a guest, I never knew the power of a microphone. I never knew the power of my voice and what it did for me, and it still does that for me. Radio for me, and I do TV as well, but radio for me is such a powerful medium. I love it.
Yeah, it's so fun. It was so fun to watch that happen. And then of course the big question came up, because it was right about this time that you were like getting ready to write a book about relationships and intimacy, because it's your expertise and because you had this amazing relationship with your husband for this many years, but your brand was getting ready to take flight when your marriage was crashing and burning, right? And so we had that conversation about like, how do we do this authentically? And you had those big questions that so many messengers have about, like, me, I'm writing a book about being a mom, and I totally spanked the crap out of my kid in the back of the car one time, like to the point where he didn't recognize me. Like, does that mean that I can't speak about the 95% other part of my powerful parenting? It's that whole conversation. So talk about that a little bit. I'd love for you to share kind of what was your...
I think the way I tell people, and I think, we were a very well-known couple in the Bahamas, and it was really through what we had that really gave birth to my career and how I did. But like a lot of women, as that grows, the dynamic within the relationship changes. And a lot of men, although I thought he was keeping up with me and that he was supporting me, a lot of men don't like that shift. And I think a lot of career women can appreciate that, where things just go off center and off balance. And so when our relationship really took a massive nosedive, and of course, then not only did it affect my relationship, but my career. I was on the radio every Thursday, and I was producing an article every Tuesday. So it affected it both ways. So it's like, and so we get into the thing, are we going to let somebody else's behavior or this devastate everything? And so it's a challenge for every messenger. As I've always said, I feel, and to this day, I always feel I am a messenger. I am a messenger, and I'm proud to say I'm a messenger. And so, do we give up? Is that it? Did it go so far and then that's it? Was this the challenge? Was this the end point? And so this is where the voice, and for me, it is the voice. It is that drive within me. It is that, and part of me would like to be able to live a very quiet and conservative, and to be the person that other people want me to be. The energy within me and the voice within me just gets louder and louder and persistent. And then sometimes it doesn't get louder, it's just persistent. And it's just like knocking away at me. And so it's that. And so you have to rethink. And so, okay, so now I'm a different person. This wasn't working. And so it's the flexibility. And I tell everybody, every entrepreneur, you've got to be flexible. If it doesn't work one way, how is it going to work another way? Think, don't give up. You've got to get creative. And so this is where our creativeness has to come in. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, he's done this to the Bahamas. Let me listen to that person who said to me I could take it internationally. And so that's how I ended up in California meeting you. And the whole thing moved on from there. Again, it took another, and I call it the elevator drop, you know, where you think it's boom, and you think, it can't possibly get any worse than this. We can't get any lower than this. And boom, the elevator drops. And off we go again. Hence, hey, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. And then I ended up back in the UK, and I've been here for 4 years. But the voice is still there. And so now I'm at the point of, okay, so now I'm on a program, and we're going to be rebranding my business, Rock Solid Love, to a point where it can really work for me and give me the life and lifestyle that I want. So then I can really reach more people, as I've always wanted to do.
Yeah. And I think that's important too for people to understand that, you know, you can go from, like, things change over time, right? Like the reason why we're led to the first thing, that's one of the reasons why I work really hard with clients, to give them that overall big picture so that they can pivot when they need to, like pivot to this audience, pivot to, so you have this brand, this Rock Solid Love brand, but now it's like, I don't like the way that it was being delivered or the services that I was offering. So now what do I focus on? What's my emphasis inside of this big brand to really take it to the next level? So you don't have to abandon one to embrace the other.
It's just to find a way that it works. Because you can have it on the side. I can always have it on the side, but that's not what I want. You know, this isn't who I am. So you've got to decide. So it's learning how to focus. Well, I've always been good at focusing. You know, when I came on your retreat, I was very focused. I thought I was very focused. I thought I knew myself. Amanda, if we sat down now, I could teach you like advanced stuff. It's like, and so that's where the voice, the message is in the focusing, you know, because there's so many distractions, and life can pull you all over the place, and people can pull you all over the place, and families and friends. And before you know it, they've got you believing this and this and this. So it's like listening to, and it's really getting to know yourself. So it's the self-work that it takes to be an entrepreneur and be a messenger. And so that's where the mindfulness is. The mindfulness is in the learning how to focus, which is an art, really. Yeah.
So let's talk, I really want to talk about some of like your down and dirty stuff about being in relationships. Like even before we hopped on and started recording, we were talking about, you know, how it's gone from this, like the intimacy and heat between a man and a woman, or going into now this conversation of like what you've been experiencing in your own personal life, having moved out of that type of relationship, and then going back to like a hometown, right? Like family of origin relationships, and then your own relationship with yourself. Like, what do you have to offer? Because I think that just to set this up properly, I really, the piece that you said that I feel like there's, like, I can hear the audience going, can you have her ask about this? Right. Is the part about outgrowing someone. Because I think that, at least as far as what I know of the stories that you've told, even of the recent past, there's that element of like, when we say yes to becoming the best version of ourselves, which means abandoning lesser versions of ourselves, and those lesser versions had certain types of relationships and dynamics with others, like there's always those power differentials that happens in intimate relationships and family of origin and mentor client relationships, like everywhere this happens. Help us, Maggie. How do we navigate that when we're the one who's on the growth trajectory?
Gosh, just by you saying all that, it was just that pulled in so many stories for me. I was like, oh, where do I start?
I'm helping you with the next book.
I know. As for the intimate relationship, when I left the marriage and it ended, it became very clear that, and I say it to a lot of people, you know, we have relationships for certain times in our lives, I believe. This is my belief. And so this is where, and it became apparent because we're all growing, we're all changing. Some people, it may not be so obvious or so apparent, and some people's growth is a different pace altogether. But you can't stop that. You can't change that. And so it was apparent when I was growing and evolving with my career and being known and becoming a writer. I'd never written, and then I was on radio and all these things. And so it became apparent that, yeah, he wasn't going to keep up with me, and he wasn't, but that was, you know, our other personal issues. But it's an awakening, isn't it? It's like, oh my gosh, oh, okay. And so then I came back to the UK where so I've been in the Bahamas for 26 years. And of course, my family over here in the UK, then I step into a family where I've been the distant one, the distant relative where they'd seen once in a while kind of thing. And so I'm much more upfront, I'm there in person. And so the things that I hadn't realized, we are triggers for each other. You know, your things that you say to me, my trigger. You have to know that we all have things that people show up in us. And so for some reason, I showed up in a lot of people's in the family. But I think this is the story of every entrepreneur. I think of so many entrepreneurs where within families, you're the odd one, you're the weird one, you're the crazy one, you're the one with a huge imagination. And because they're not like that. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs that have the ability to imagine, to visualize, to dream, have this capacity to allow other people to be who they are. Mm. And so this is my view, is that, and I have ability not to, I accept people for who they are because I can see, but other people can't. And so I realize, and I have to be reminded over and over again, when things happen to me, that most people aren't like me. And I think that's an entrepreneur's, and that's why the law of attraction, we're attracted to people who are like us, and they're attracted to people like them. And so it affects relationships. But to hear over and over again that you're not this and you're this and da 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 is the distraction. Mm-hmm. And so they instill fear in us, and doubt. And that's what stops everybody mm-hmm. from moving to where they want to be and to be the person that they want to be. And so again, it's that learning how to focus and let those people be. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the louder that they are, sometimes we have to let those relationships go altogether. And so people are like, but you're a relationship expert. And I'm like, no, I'm not an expert, but I know relationships. And I know if they're not good for me, if they don't honor me, if they're not joyous, if they're dampening my light, if they completely suffocate me, then I need to let them go. And that's what, in a lot of my work, when you have abusive relationships with clients, you have to tell them, and we advise them, so why don't we do it for ourselves? Mm-hmm. We know it's a form of abuse. They're suffocating us. They're suffocating us being the person that we want to be. And my thing is, we are dreamers, we're visualizers, we have the ability to see wider than a lot of people. And we wouldn't do that to them, and yet they do it to us. Mm-hmm. And so this is what I've learned. It's since I've been over here, it's like self and me and where I want to go, but more importantly, what my message is. And so my message gets louder and louder and louder. And so that I'm teaching people how to have truly loving relationships with people who deserve your love, and that you love yourself. And first, it's all about self. Mm-hmm. Which, I had to learn the hard way myself to really, really understand that. So again, I get back to the, walk the walk to be able to talk the talk.
That's the difference between expert and messenger, as far as I'm concerned. Messengers are like really concerned with lining up to the message that's coming through because it's painful. But experts can kind of disassociate if they need to and just teach, but not feel that need to embody as much because of the positioning that happens with the expertise. So I love that you shared that. And I love too that it does bring to light this idea of like, just because we have the message doesn't mean that we don't have these areas in our lives where we're still embodying the message, and to kind of let messengers off the hook in a way, these these folks who are out there and like they make.
Yes, and I hope my story of being a relationship specialist and that I've had relationship difficulties with my family and friends shows, as I always tell everything, no one's perfect. Mm-hmm. Relationships aren't meant to be perfect. It's how it settles, how it feels for you. That's all it is, So this sense that we're supposed to be expert and perfect in everything and untouchable, and it's just not true. So, and it's not authentic. Mm-hmm. I would rather be the person who knows the highs and knows the lows. Mm-hmm. I've been there on both. And so I can feel, and so my empathy and my compassion for my clients, I feel, and they tell me, is just so much deeper. I'm just so much deeper and richer for all the life lessons that I've learned. So I value, and so it's all about gratitude. I'm so grateful. I'm so appreciative, and again, and that's what it's all about. That's what being a messenger is. You carry that with you. That's what I believe our life here is all about. It's all about appreciation and gratitude and what you do with that. And I've been a server and all my life. So I've given to people. So I just doing it in a different way. So but I do it from a place of where now I truly understand. So I thought I did before, but it's amazing, you know, the elevator drop, you know, it's, I thought I knew, but the lessons in life so the wisdom, you know, I'm nearly 60 now, I'm going to be 59 in August, and the wisdom that I have now, and that's what I pass on to people, and I like to think that I can help people with that.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of that wisdom, some of the relationship tricks and tools that you've got, because I want people to know the depth of your wisdom on this relationship piece of, like, not just relationship with self, but with others, because man, I learned a lot while I was working on your book. Just like all those little subtleties, you know, I'm a subtlety girl, like that's right. Like I'm always looking for that in my work, but I have blind spots, and one of them was in my relationship. So talk a little bit about those subtleties and share some tips and tools for the people listening.
Gosh. Well, I guess I'm just thinking about some of the clients that I've just spoken to recently. And I think through my book, and I talk about the big love. I think a lot of problems that a lot of people have is wanting to be that person for the other person. And so you're trying so hard to fulfill and be the perfect girlfriend, be the perfect wife or whatever. And so you're missing out on yourself. And so instead of thinking, well, I'm this great person, I've got all these great attributes, and this is where the self-care and trying to work on yourself so that I attract. So, are they the right person for me? And so we get past that neediness. So sometimes that trying to fulfill that expectation of the other person, we're always running after and scurrying after that, instead of honoring and being as whole a person as we can. You know, that whole thing about being whole and about, well, I'm reaching that point. I mean, you'll never reach that point. But it's seeing that big love, because when we give, the mirror is that person, hopefully, if you've got the right person, and if they receive it in the right way, they will give back. And so we're honoring in that, rather than all this time of, you know, giving, and they're not either recognizing the love, they're not acknowledging it, and you're not getting it back. So that thing, well, I do all of this, and he doesn't do anything in return. So it's that sort of thing. Does that sound putting that across?
Yeah, absolutely.
Another big thing that I find from my book that I say over and over to my clients is about creating memories. And so, and the power, you know, we get into the, you know, power, words are such a powerful, hurtful thing, and actions are too. And so when I tell people about creating memories, and they think, oh, it sounds such hard work each time to think about that, but like every habit, and I talk about habits over and over and over, because everything is a habit. And the more that we unhabit something, and we create new habits, it's amazing how it starts as a conscious thought over and over, and before you know it, it becomes just a natural behavior. And so I think it's really powerful, and I try, and because it's so natural to me, is to create everything that we do. And whether it's as a mother, that word when you say to your son when he leaves the door, your response when he does something good, your response when he does something that you think isn't so good, or when he's faced with a dilemma or, you know, something, how do you respond to it? Because it's when we look back in 10, 15 years time, you want to be able to say, well, I did a good job for that. Or if the marriage doesn't fail, if the marriage fails and you think, well, I did everything that I could, and I'm proud that I tried and I did this and da da da. And so it's the power of creating memories. Memories are, that's all we're left with. You know, when your house gets burnt, the tornado, the hurricane, whatever, and all your photos and your computers and everything goes and you've got nothing left. What you're left with your memories. And so it's how we create. And it's creating. It's creating. Yeah. You're creating a lifestyle, you're creating a family life, you're creating your own memories, and it plays a part on the message, you know, everything that we do. So it may sound very contrived, it may sound hard work, it may sound too difficult, but it's amazing when, and I go through this work with my clients and I show them how to do it. And once you practice and practice and practice, hey, how do we learn anything? It's through practice.
Yeah, and things that are unnatural. I mean, I don't know if I shared with you, but there was a season in our relationship where I was just, you know, super busy, and also different love languages, right? Like he's very much like affection and I'm very much words. And so we miss each other. You know, I'd be talking and he'd be like, but you, like, he couldn't hear me because I didn't kiss him when I got home. That was all he could. So I literally set reminders on my phone, like, remember to kiss your husband. Like, it sounds terrible, but I had to build that habit because it was so like unnatural and unneeded for me at that time, but it was so needed for him. So.
Well, I'm sure you've heard about the book, you know, the 5 languages of love. So, you know, we've all got, and we all love in the way like you do, like he does, in the way that you know. But it doesn't mean that's the love that the other person knows. And so we have to do it and speak it in a way that it can be received, which is what you did. So listen, you do what works. And once you see that it works, the response that you have was, oh my gosh, is that all it took? And so you start to understand them, and they start to understand you. And so that is the wonder of, you know, we're not in couples with clones of ourselves. You've got to see it as the wonder of getting to know somebody else and the wonder of being in a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you program it into your phone?
I programmed it into my phone.
Do you still do it though?
No.
Oh,
no, I don't need to. It's a habit.
There you are. See?
It was many moons ago. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and just those little, you know, listening and the subtleties, and that's why I love your work and I love the book so much, is because it's so much more about the finer details, you know, about not just, you know, even in that example, like not just right kissing because it's the thing to do, it's like checking off my list, right? But it's like the subtlety of the energy, the intention behind it, all of these little things that add up to so much more over time.
Well, and that's why it's a relationship enhancement book. you know, and that's why I say the ho-hum, and people are like, what's ho-hum? And ho-hum is a little bit boring, a little bit dull. Because if you're missing each other all the time, that all gets a bit, it's not exciting. There's not a spark, you know, it's like, oh, you know, the flirting's gone, the little catching you off guard, and like, oh, he got that, he understood that, and she got, you know, it's like, so that's what's missing. So this is what my book teaches, and my work is, I want to show people, I want people to have the best relationship that they can possibly have. And, you know, like I said, my recent work is really, once you really get to know yourself, because if you don't know yourself, then you don't really know what you want, and you don't know what you don't want. And so that's the interesting thing. How do you get to know that? So that's a whole different layer.
I know, right? But it's important, because otherwise you're just trying to learn what you need to learn to keep them happy. And then you wake up one day and you're like, but what about me? But what about me? So a few things that people can do to go back to, like, to have that kind of fun, flirty, you know, wonder put back into their relationships. What are some of your best tips for that?
Oh gosh. Well, you know, I'm a great believer in the kissing and the holding hands. Holding hands, that, and kissing. When I ask couples, you know, it's even any type of kissing, it's amazing how that just goes off the radar so soon. So those are the things. But the playfulness, again, the not really knowing how deeply you're appreciated is, so one of the exercises in my book is about, I appreciate you because, and so you sit opposite each other holding hands, and you know, you get past the top 5 and then people get stuck. Okay, you know, like what next? And so you have to, and so it gets very emotional, you know, you dig back of, I appreciate you because, you know, something about looking after grandma, or, you know, it would get deeper and deeper. So those are important things. Listen, I'm an expert on intimacy, so I'm, you know, that the sexual intimacy is really, really important. And I spoke to a couple the other day, and she just said they were working split shifts, and you know, she said they're just so tired, and you know, they talk about ships in the night, and I just said, you have to, that word schedule just freaks people out, and they just think, oh, it's just like, I said, but there's nothing wrong with that, because even when you schedule, you don't know what's going to happen within the schedule. You can still make it interesting, exciting, but you have to. And I was placing the importance of touch. Oh, touch is so important, because that's the bond. That's the bond that will tie you together. It's the attachment. And it's so hard, the longer that you leave it off, it's so hard to bring it back again. So that kind of, hearing that sometimes is enough for people to jolt them, and sometimes it's gone on for so long they don't know how. Again, that goes into the deeper work that I do with people, and find out really what's going on, because unfortunately it can be the outer things going on with family, work, other stresses, but the first place for the stress to show itself is the bedroom. So yeah,
some good stuff. You have some really good tips and really important stories and scenes in the book that, you know, I've got it right here, girl. I come back here and I'm learning as much as I can all the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see this next iteration of your work and your brand, and taking it into the self-care route. I think that it makes perfect sense. So I'm excited about that for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, I would love for you to share just a few things like about this mindfulness around being a messenger and like what are some of the things that keep you centered on point? Like you've been pulled in so many directions over all
Mhm,
these years. Like how do you
mhm.
stay sane? What are some of your practices that help you?
Well, I had I wouldn't even say luck. It's not luck. Good fortune, or I think it is the guidance that I've had from the universe and guidance overall. I've had the pleasure of looking after and meeting some really the most important mentors in my life. And it's their books and their stories and their words. And I personally looked after Sir John Templeton in the Bahamas as a nurse. He was the founder of mutual funds. And he lived to his late 90s, but he's written many books. And it's through really talking to him that he passed on to me how he focused. So he was one of the people, although I knew actually how to focus. So, and I tell you this because my youngest son, who's 24, if I told you that I gave birth to him in complete silence, I gave out one sound as I was pushing and I frightened myself. Then this is my second son, so I learned it from the first to second in complete silence. And I visualized his head, not his body, his head moving down through me. And so I had the ability to focus. So that was 24 years ago. Then I looked after Sir John Templeton, and he taught me about time efficiency. He was a very time efficient man. So not only his schedule, but he had certain routines throughout his day where he would exercise in the sea at a certain point. But more importantly, in all his free time, he would read all the time. And he did not watch TV. And to this day, since I came to the UK for 4 years, I don't own a TV. So yes, I watch Netflix and I watch a movie and stuff, but that kind of mindless TV, I don't do. So there's a lot of time in the day so Sir John Templeton, an eternal optimist. And when I asked him about at the time when I first met him and I was taught there was some war going on, and he said, that doesn't affect me, da da da. And so he didn't concern himself if it didn't affect him, which at the time I thought, oh, well, that's kind of like isolating or whatever. But it's amazing how you can focus and do what you're meant to do when you're not distracted. So he really taught me about that. The other person so these are people that I draw on when I think about things. And with my eldest son, who's a business guy, and I often tell him, well, Sir John Templeton would do it, and Sir John would this and that. So he comes up in my conversation a lot, and so he has a lot of influence. The other person was Dr. Miles Monroe, who was a huge international motivational speaker and the founder of the Bahamas Faith Ministry. He wrote lots and lots of books. Sadly, died with his wife in a plane crash in the Bahamas. Huge loss for the Bahamas. And his book right in front of me, I've got The Power of Vision. The Power of Your Vision. And so when I met him and I read his books, the importance of all of us having a vision and the power that goes with that. So it's understanding we're given a power, and what are we going to do with it? So it's all the messenger work. It's all the messenger work. Yeah.
I love it.
So it's really, I had the pleasure of meeting these men who saw my vision and my power and recognized it. And so, it's like passing on the baton then, isn't it? And it's like, well, we've got to do something because they've seen it in us. And so we've got to do something with it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so wonderful when you get to have the opportunity to turn around and help other people in that way, or that just that quick interaction, you know, it's like it could change everything because all it took was someone to walk by and say you could do this internationally, and
It's a gift. It's a gift. I feel I've been given a gift. I feel I've been given a gift, and every time I've tried not to do something with it, it keeps on going on and on. So it's powerful. I feel the gift that I've been given. So this is where 2018, I'm turning things around once again, and we'll see where it goes.
yeah.
And in the meantime, you know, every time I sit down and before I know it, whether I call it a session on a park bench, on a plane ride, in, you know, with some of my nursing colleagues, so which are like, gosh, nurses are huge givers. So when they give so much all the time, you've got nothing for yourself. So it's teaching them how to really take care of themselves. Yeah, so it's a gift. You have a gift, I have a gift, and everybody has a gift. It's recognizing what's the gift that we've been given. So that's the purpose of the vision.
Love it. Well, I have these rapid fire questions that I ask at the end of every episode, and I love it because I get to hear about amazing books that I've never heard about before and messengers that I want to go look up and listen to. So, are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, so what was the first book or message that changed your life?
Well, I've told you two of those with Sir John and Dr. Miles Monroe. But as a child, I really loved The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and C.S. Lewis. And I think it's developed that whole imagination. That was really the childhood things. And then getting on to these powerful mission books. But I must say that, we got into, if you fired the last question of the one that I carry around with me just now actually is a poetry book. It's a collection of poems, and let me pronounce her name properly. It's Susan Freibold, and it's called Hope is a Traveler. Just the name, and so they're real soul poems. Oh, and they speak to me all the time. So Hope is a Traveler. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Travel through lives, travel through time, travel through. So it's finding the things that speak to me, you know, at that time in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I know that messages are medicine. You know, it's like I have this pain, and there's even some, like, I'm absolutely 100% addicted to the medicine of The Greatest Showman right now. Like, it's right. Every week I'm watching that. I'm listening to the music. My family is so tired of this show. Not really. I mean, my husband's just like, I can't listen to the music anymore. My son is totally into it. But it's like, there's something that like needs to get in the bones about that, you know? And so I just like immerse and saturate, and it's like trying to absorb all the good stuff out of there. And, you know, I could tell you what I think it's about, but there's something else going on, you know?
Feel good. That's the thing. I mean, it all comes down to what it does to you. It's not really what it is, it's what it does to you. So yeah, it's all that feel good stuff, which sounds a bit twee and trite, but
we need more of that, Maggie.
All looking for, you know, that's what there's enough stuff that to pull us down and real life stuff, but it's good to, it's like on some of the news channels or online when they've got good news, and I'm like, well, I click on that, and so here these lovely heart-rendering things of people doing good and helping other people. That's what it should be about. It's about service and about helping people, because, you know, yeah.
Yeah. That's what feels good. It's good to be of service. It's good to be a contribution. It's good to feel good. You know, I think that we've had lots of those conversations about watching some of our, you know, what do you call them? Like our figures, the people in our industry that we look up to or try to figure out, like, how did they get there, and how do I want to be there, and how would I do it, and all of those things. Like, I think one of the things that I see as a regular thing with people who really make it is this like level of fatigue and like this not feeling good thing that happens under the surface because it's just so busy and so focused on helping other people. And so, and I love all of that. And I'm also just like, I want to learn how to absorb the pleasure for me, like regardless of what's happening out there. Like, I just want to be able to be present in every moment and in every relationship and not have it be all tied to, well, when I get here, you know?
It's about savoring.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that, just like I said, creating memories. If you don't take that time, what does it matter what pace you're going at? It's like it's still got to feel good for you, because when we leave here, we want to know we've done as well as we can. I mean, that's the way I look at it. So, yeah, we talked about Brendan Burchard, and, you know, he talks my language. And when he says about, you know, yeah, it's all about that, savoring. You know, it's all about appreciation and gratitude, which again, these words get thrown out. So it's just like, no, you have to really experience that. How do you really, really appreciate something? You have to appreciate when it's been taken away from you. You know, when it's been taken away from you and then you get it back, then you savor it. So sometimes there's a lot to be said for losing everything and starting off from rock bottom again to know that this is really what it's all about.
Let's leave it there, girl. That was beautiful. I'm excited about people watching this episode, and I just want to thank you so much for showing up and telling all the good stuff and all the hard stuff. Like, it's just so much a part of this journey, and I just really appreciate you for diving in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And to our audience, I'd love to hear from you too. Let us know what you thought about today's conversation, what you learned, what you're taking away. And of course, I need to thank our sponsor, sitechisel.com. They offer a 10% discount to all of my listeners who use the code Mindful10. So with that, we've got a wrap for today. Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.